Country Bokujo, Shizunai, Hokkaido, Japan, Asia, Earth. I went too far. Founded in 1963, this racehorse production farm owned by Japanese businessman Nobuo Tanimizu would put horses through especially rigorous training to produce top-quality racehorses. The training the horses went through to his designs were so rigorous, in fact, that there were some horses who suffered injuries due to how aggressive the training was. The horses that did pull through that training, though, were often seen as strong competitors. In 1968, Marches would be the first horse from Country Bokujo to win a major race by winning the 1968 Satsuki Show. Marches went on to become a 100 million yen winning horse, winning 7 of 12 races in 1968, including wins in the Spring Stakes, NHK High, Kisaragi Show, and Sapporo Kinen, together with a third-place finish in the Kika Show. Marches wouldn't be able to repeat his success in following years, but did end his career on a win in an open race in 1970. Apart from Marches, Tanimizu would also develop a naming habit for his other racehorses, christening several of them with the name Tanino. Why was that? Well, if we just remove this and put this possessive here, then we get Tanino. Tani's something, as we all know. Horses with this designation brought the farm further acclaim in the late 60s and early 70s, with Tanino Harrimore winning the 1968 Japan Derby, and Tanino Moutier becoming a Double Crown racehorse by winning both the 1970 Japan Derby and Satsuki Show. Just as he was finding success, however, in 1971, Nobuo Tanimizu would be tragically killed in a car accident after being struck by a drunk driver at the age of 59. Country Bokujo would thereafter be operated by Nobuo's son, Yuzo Tanimizu. Yuzo was a businessman like his father, and had also inherited his father's other businesses, such as his golf course. He was extremely busy and was considering getting out of horse racing entirely, but changed his mind when one of his horses and Tanino Moutier's half-brother, Tanino Chikara, won the 1973 Autumn Tonneau Show and 1974 Arima Kinen. During this time, Yuzo would travel to America and instinctively bought a foal for $70,000, which is almost $500,000 today, naming it Tanino Seabird and having it race in America to the tune of 2 wins in 10 races before retiring and being transported to Japan in 1975. Following this, Country Bokujo would enter a slump. For reference, in 1974, the ranch was rated as the number 3 ranch in all of Japan. By 1980, it was ranked 97th, which I'm pretty sure is bad. For the rest of the 20th century, not one horse produced would ever win a G1. Simultaneously, the ranch experienced a number of mismanagement issues, including a dramatic increase of horses at the ranch, which saw the soil of the ranch drop in quality and the grass at the ranch becoming low in nutritional value. The ranch went under major reforms during this time to hopefully salvage what success they used to have. During this time, Tanino Seabird would give birth to Tanino Crystal in 1988, who went on to win 3 races and had 13 total podium finishes in 40 races. Tanino Crystal would then be paired with an American stallion who at the time was drawing comparisons to Sunday Silence and Tony Bin in terms of stud work after siring Narita Bryan and Mayano Top Gun, Bryan's time, and gave birth to her third foal in 1999, who would be named after a type of cocktail, Tanino Gimlet, and all the fences in the land quaked with fear. Tanino Gimlet's first race would come in August of 2001 on a 1,000-meter dirt track debut race in Sapporo. Given his pedigree, it was a bit unconventional to debut on dirt, but sometimes this is done because there's concern over the horse's leg strength, which is why horses we know like El Condor Pasa and Taiki Shuttle debuted on dirt. That didn't seem to be the case for Tanino Gimlet, who was in fact viewed as strong even in his young years, so I guess they were just feeling quirky. Entering as the favorite, Tanino Gimlet would place second to Rare Pearl and immediately have to consider retirement after fracturing his tail. Fortunately, his tail recovered, and in December, Tanino Gimlet won a maiden race by an impressive 7 lengths in Hanshin. Following that, his eyes turned to the graded races of Japan. Specifically, next on his docket would be the G3 Shinzan Kinen in January of 2002. For this race, legendary Japanese jockey Yutaka Take would take Gimlet's reins for the first time. Tanino Gimlet entered as the heavy favorite, and after racing toward the front, usually hovering around 4th place throughout, he took off and managed to hold off the other horses in hot pursuit of the goal line, winning by half a length and collecting his first graded victory. Tanino Gimlet would follow this up with an entry into the Arlington Cup in the next month. Once again, he would enter as the heavy favorite with Take back in the saddle. Here he would race more towards the middle of the pack than he had before, and despite this, once again managed to overtake all his opposition in the final corner and never giving the lead up, claiming victory by 3.5 lengths. The next target would be a qualifying race for the Satsuki Show, the G2 Spring Stakes in March. Replacing an injured Take would be Hirofumi Shi, who alongside Agnes Digital had defeated TM Opera O in the previous year's Autumn Tonneau Show and was fresh off a win in the February Stakes. He'd also been Tanino Gimlet's jockey in his second race that he won by 7 lengths. Once again, Tanino Gimlet found himself entering the race as the heavy favorite. In this race, he found himself way further back than ever before, more often than not around 12th place out of 16 racers, and once again he showed off his explosive final spurt in the final corner by overtaking 13 other horses from outside and winning by a neck over Tony Bin foal Telegnosis. Having won the Spring Stakes, Tanino Gimlet qualified for his next race, which would be his first G1, the Satsuki Show, taking place in April. Hirofumi Shi would once again be his jockey and did enter as the favorite, though not by as much as he had previously, followed closely behind by Keisei Cup winner and Yayoi Show runner-up Roman Empire, as well as the undefeated Monopolizer. I guess he was monopolizing wins. Joining them in the race would be Cheers Stark and Admire Dawn, as well as another horse we know and 15th favorite out of 18 racers, and another foal of Brian's time, No Reason. During the race, Tanino Gimlet raced in the back, but ended up way outside on the final corner. Although he was able to climb up into a good position from that point, surpassing several other horses from way behind, he'd end up unable to get past the final two racehorses as he placed third behind winner and aforementioned 15th favorite No Reason and second place Tiger Cafe. His poor cornering was considered an error by Shi, as it was purported that Tanino Gimlet had to basically run another 100 meters than any other horse due to his exceptionally wide turn. Following the Satsuki show, Yutaka Take returned to take the reins once again for the obvious next race, the NHK Mile Cup. Wait, that's not obvious. Why enter the NHK Mile Cup a month after the Satsuki show and 3 weeks before the Japan Derby? Well, we can turn to trainer Kunihide Matsuda, who is famous for not only making training incredibly rigorous, but packing a ton of races into horses' schedules as well to increase their value after retirement, since horses who could run in both mile and middle distance races were highly sought after for stud work. Remind you of anything? Matsuda had tried this strategy in the year prior with Kurafune, who placed first in the NHK Mile Cup but fifth in the Japan Derby. In the future, he'd also run these races with King Kamehameha, who actually did win both races, but struggled to repeat that success with horses like Fusaichi Richard and Dan Enchantilly. He didn't push this schedule in all his horses, but it was a race schedule that would draw criticism for working the horses too hard, as evidenced by the early retirements of Kurafune and King Kamehameha in particular. In the NHK Mile Cup, Tanino Gimlet will be pitted against milers such as G2 New Zealand Trophy winner Taiki Lion, Agnes Sonic, who had 3 graded podium finishes to this point, as well as familiar foes like Telegnosis, Mejiro Meyer, and Star Eldorado. Tanino Gimlet got off to his now regular start toward the back and sprinted for the end after a much more successful cornering operation in the final stretch, but was blocked by the swerving movements of Telegnosis, who would go on to win the race, leaving Tanino Gimlet in third for the second straight race, finishing behind second place Agnes Sonic. That 1600 meter detour now dealt with, it was now time to enter the Japan Derby. Despite his 2 straight G1 losses, for his 3rd straight G1, Tanino Gimlet entered as the #1 favorite. There was concern being thrown around that his previous 2 finishes may have proven that he was getting worked too hard and couldn't pull off a victory in the Japan Derby, but Tanino Gimlet was still supported heavily by the fans, who still believed he was the strongest of the generation. Which is bad news because the Kika show is actually the race won by the strongest horse. Tanino Gimlet would have to face several of his usual contemporaries like No Reason, the now slightly less undefeated Monopolizer, Tiger Cafe, Admire Dawn, and Telegnosis among others. He'd also end up against new faces in Sunday Silence Full Gold Allure and G2 Alba Show winner Symbolic Chris S. He spent most of his race hustling alongside No Reason, but come the final corner, Tanino Gimlet was able to take off outside once again, and this time, finally overtook everyone in his path, surging past 12 other horses and finally winning his first G1. This Derby win was not only important for Tanino Gimlet, but for who backed him as well. This will be the first G1 victory in almost 30 years for Country Bokujo, and Yuzo and Nobuo Tanimizu became rarefied as the 5th father-son owners to win the Derby, as Nobuo had also won it with Tanino Haramore and Tanino Moutier, as we know. Yutaka Take would also become the first jockey to win the Japan Derby 3 times thanks to this race. Tanino Gimlet continued to train in preparation for the autumn races during the summer, with Matsuda specifically mentioning the Japan Cup. However, on September 1st, 2002, it was found that he had a bowed tendon in one of his legs, and with a 6-month recovery period, that would rule him out for races until next year. After discussions between Tanimizu, Matsuda, and others close to the situation, the decision was made to retire Tanino Gimlet to prevent further injuries and preserve his value as a stud, and a ceremony was held at Sapporo Racecourse in August of 2003. Tanino Gimlet arguably only grew more enigmatic once he retired. He went to stud at Shadai Stallion Station, which housed horses we know like Mr. CB, Agnes Tachyon, and Grass Wonder. He went on to sire several graded race winners like Absolute and Smilejack, but his best-known progeny by a landslide is Vodka, a mare who won 7 G1 races, including the same Japan Derby her sire had won, becoming the first filly to win in 64 years, also resulting in Vodka and Tanino Gimlet becoming the first and only father-daughter combo to have won the Derby. And since he was Vodka's jockey in that Derby, I guess Hirofumi Shi redeemed himself with that one. You're alright in my book, Hirofumi Shi. Meanwhile, Country Bokujo would continue to find success with a few horses, most notably Vodka and Big Week, who won the 2010 Kika show, but Country Bokujo eventually closed in 2012, selling most of their remaining horses and their remaining assets. Yuzo Tanimizu would continue to privately own racehorses, but as of 2022 has no registered horses and was considered retired. Tanino Gimlet then retired from active stud duty to Versailles Resort Farm in 2020, where he developed a new fun hobby, property damage. Kicking fences is generally frowned upon in the horse community on account of the fact that it can really hurt a horse, but for some reason Tanino Gimlet was really good at breaking them, as he's never sustained an injury when doing so in the countless amount of times he has. In 2022, he broke so many fences that his farm compared it to the amount of home runs that famous Tokyo Yakult Swallow and future Chicago White Sox corner infielder Munetaka Murakami had, and he had 56 that year. Was that an obvious shoehorn to baseball? This is why, per the famous umamusume art book, his umamusume counterpart's racing outfit features strong-looking boots made for eviscerating wooden barriers. Eventually, Versailles Resort Farm began selling pieces of the fences he broke to help pay for replacement fences and setting up birthday fundraisers for soon-to-be-destroyed fences. He'd also become a poor influence on his new best friend Rose Kingdom, who originally was frightened by the prospect of a horse sending fences flying, but somehow Tanino Gimlet taught him the ways of safely doing so. Thus he became known as the God of Destruction among Japanese fans. He did suffer an abnormal injury in his retirement when in 2022 his left eye became inflamed, requiring him to wear an eye patch. Huh? Wait, isn't that the right eye? Fortunately, he would recover and his eye was totally fine within a few years. Having lived a very long life, Tanino Gimlet is currently the oldest living Derby horse at 27 years of age. He's also the last horse with the name of Tanino to win a G1 after the naming convention was dropped in 2004. He retired with 5 wins in 8 races, landing on the podium another 3 times, which means he had a podium finish in every single one of his races. So sit back and crack open a nice gimlet to celebrate the life and times of the famous Derby fence breaker. Is this a gimlet?